All right, all right. We're live from Jonesboro, Arkansas, STS Studios, STS Pod Studios. That's right. This is a STS Pod dot club. Man, let me do that again. Fuck, I fucked that up. Here we go. I can edit that. Man, at one time I couldn't do my catchphrase, and then I couldn't do my entrance.
I hate it when I have to do something live because I know I'm like, oh
But
shit.
I'm used to it now. I mean, this is like episode 7, whatever. What I was going to tell you something else too. This doesn't air till Monday the 29th, so
Okay.
let's don't talk about anything that happens on this upcoming week because I didn't see it yet. And so the 29th, it airs next Monday. So nothing. Just keep everything evergreen so that we
Got
know
it.
what's going on. Okay, here we go. All right. We're live from STS Studios in Jonesboro, Arkansas. This is an STS Pod Club production. I'm BT, and right over there is Matthew Williams, Matt Williams, Excalibur, ever what the hell you want to call him. How's it going, Matt?
Man, it's going great. Thank you for having me.
Man, I want to just tell you, I want to warn you right now. And I know we talked a little bit before we started recording. Man, I'm so hyped up on caffeine today. I may be talking a million miles to nothing. So just remember that. But my first question, and you remember this podcast is all about me. I just have
All
you,
about you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Remember
we're
that.
putting you over, brother.
You're just in the background, okay?
This is the old brother putting BT over podcast. I got it.
Hey,
That's what I've been doing most of my career is putting guys over.
That's right. And who is BT's favorite podcast host? BT, just like
Yeah.
Austin Lane. Austin Lane's favorite wrestler is
Austin
Austin
Lane.
Lane. So tell me, I got to know this because we have known each other, not really personally, really sit down and talk, but we've been cordial. How's that? Cordial to each other for a long time. When was the first time you remember BT? And you actually was a reader of WrestleRideOnline.com, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first time that I remember someone turned me on to Wrestling Riot, you were just doing website, and then you would grade matches, and you had come to ASWF, and I don't remember who I had worked, but you gave me the best compliment I had ever gotten as a wrestler.
Oh, cool. What was that? Do you remember what I said?
Oh yeah, I remember. So
Oh,
you said you were grading a 5-star rating is what you was your highest, and you gave my match 3 stars. And here's the thing you said about it, though. You said, here's the thing with Excalibur, because I was Excalibur at the time. You're never going to see Excalibur in a 5-star match because anytime I see him on a card, he's working a 1-star wrestler. And he gets a 3-star match out of a 1-star wrestler. So that's where you're going to see Excalibur. You're going to see him in those matches making guys look better than what they are. And that was the best compliment I had ever gotten.
hey, it's the truth though. It was you would wrestle some people that no one wanted to wrestle. And I looked for your stuff on Wrestling Right this morning, and I spelled your name different. I think every time I did it, I spelled it with an X, I spelled it with an E, I spelled it with an XK. So I went through some stuff, and I want to tell you, I can't think of anyone else that I've brought on my show. I kept trying to think, but I also gave you a dud one night when you when you and Morgan Lane wrestled Wild Bill and Demon X. I gave you a dud, and I said I don't even want to talk about this. So it was almost like, good God. And Lane got pinned, so at least she didn't have to do the job that night.
Yeah. And some guys may not know, but Morgan Lane is my shoot brother.
Right, he is your
Yeah.
shoot brother. But
A lot of people don't know
but
that.
he loves Austin so much. He's Austin's brother in wrestling. So how can you not get away from Austin Lane?
But, so one reason I can't is for people who don't know, Austin Lane trained me. I was 18 years old, right out of high school. We are spoiled today with the amount of places there are to work. I mean, there are professional wrestling indie places everywhere. Arkansas, Tennessee, the Memphis connections right now, there's just everywhere. When I started, you couldn't find anywhere to work. They didn't want young guys coming in. They didn't want young guys taking their spot. So they wanted you to have experience. But how do you get experience if you don't get to wrestle? So Austin trained me. We bumped on the ground. He taught me how to chain wrestle, and he gave me a Jerry Lynn RVD DVD, and that was our first
Damn.
match. He was RVD. I was Jerry Lynn. If you go back and find one of their ECW matches, and that way he said, "Oh yeah, Excalibur's been wrestling for years."
So, yeah, it's been wrestling for years, and you get thrown in there. Here, let's start all the way before you got trained, though. Tell me about Little Matt. Little Matt, growing up, was you a wrestling fan? What wrestling did you start watching? Who were your favorites and stuff like that? I love hearing this.
Okay, so my first match that I watched, my dad had got WrestleMania 6 VHS, and it was the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was a huge Ultimate Warrior fan. Now, the older I got, the more I got into classic wrestlers, like guys that were grapplers or looked like shooters. So my favorite wrestlers, if there was a gun to my head and I was trying to put together a Mount Rushmore, it would be Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and Steve Austin.
Hey, it's a good company there. Fans of. I was a huge fan of Steve Austin. I've talked about the Dusty Rhodes thing. You were a lot younger than me, so I was into kayfabe sheets at the time that Dusty was so popular, and the kayfabe guys did not like Dusty, and people in the business, and they didn't ever cover this in any of his documentaries, but guys in the business kind of didn't like Dusty because Dusty always pushed Dusty. And they thought, and then the famous Dusty finish, which I was reading about Superstar Graham this past a week because he passed away. And it said that Superstar and Dusty actually had, this was before Dusty was booking, but actually had one of those Dusty finishes where everybody went home and thought Dusty won the belt. But Superstar really kept it. So I'm like, is that where that started? He used that finish everywhere, and it just killed a bunch of business. So people didn't want to come back to see someone that didn't win the belt. So, but yeah, I love Dusty's promos and stuff. A huge Steve Austin fan. I think Steve Austin, there is so many things that he did in a short period of time. And reading Superstar Graham's bio, it's kind of they did a very short period of time in the business, but really influenced the business. There's so many people that still do Stone Cold stuff. So I watch Kevin Owens matches, and he's almost copycatting everything. Stone Cold. You do the stomp? You do the stomp in the corner, don't you?
Yeah, I do the stomp in the corner.
Yeah. So that's one of those things. What was you going to say? I'll shut up.
I'd be honest with you, I don't even remember.
But you grew up being a fan, so here's usually my next question with this. So were you into was the websites going on at the time? You into the websites and mainly?
No, I'm 40. So when I first started watching, their internet didn't exist.
Right.
So Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yeah, big fan.
Anytime that my dad, I could do chores and earn money, I'd buy Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So where I was growing up at the time, I lived I was in Austin, Texas at the time.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember the first live show he took me to was a WWF show, and my favorite wrestler, Ultimate Warrior, was going to be on the show, and he was wrestling Papa Shango.
Oh, God. I remember. Oh, I got a story about that. I'm going to save this for.
All right.
Make sure you tell me. Patreon, okay. I got a Paul Heyman, Papa Shango, Ultimate Warrior story. I don't think I've ever told it. So remember that for Patreon. All right.
Here we got it.
And so did he show up? Did Ultimate Warrior show up?
Yeah, that was the first live show. Cool. Yeah, they did a whole thing where the end of the match, it was a house show. It wasn't like it was a TV taping.
Right.
But it was a house show, and he did the thing with the skulls, and Ultimate Warrior started spitting up this green bile-looking stuff.
I didn't know they did that at house shows, but that's cool.
They were doing it at house shows. So that was my first live event. And then, let's see, moved to Brooklyn, real close to you in Jonesboro. And Memphis Wrestling. So Pro Wrestling Illustrated started getting me a taste for, there's more than WWF.
They called
because
it Mid-Southern. I'll never know
yeah,
why after them called it that, but it was Mid-Southern. You'd get the rankings in the
hmm
back, and that's where I started looking at, like you did, looking at all these, wow, there's wrestling in Florida, and that's when I started actually trading VHSs and stuff. But there was
exactly.
wrestling. You start seeing wrestling is everywhere. So what did you think about Memphis compared to WWE?
Okay, so uh, you would watch WWE and you would see Lawler as a heel, and then you would
Oh,
watch
this is what.
Memphis and
Yes,
you would
yes.
see Lawler as a babyface. So I went to the Earl Bell Center and I saw Randy Savage as
In
a heel in
Jonesboro,
Jonesboro
Arkansas. Yeah,
as
about
a
7
heel,
minutes from my house. So there you go.
and I saw and Lawler was the babyface. And my dad is 64 and he's still hot. We had brought a trading card. It was a WWF trading card that was Macho Man, and Macho, oh, brother, we're not signing cards, not just signing 8x10s. And he wouldn't sign that card. And my dad is still, I'm like, Dad, he's
He
passed
still got
away.
heat with Randy
He still
Savage
got
on
heat. Randy's passed away. And he's still one of my favorite wrestlers. One of my favorite matches is Randy Savage. Oh, I didn't put Macho Man on my dadgum
Yeah.
Mount
Hey,
Rushmore. Oh,
yeah.
doing
Macho
top four is
Man.
hard.
Him and the Steamboat match is one of my
Oh
favorite. And
yeah.
Steamboat was always one of my favorite wrestlers. I think I've talked about this before, but I somehow got a VHS tape of Steamboat doing a wrestling school seminar, which is total kayfabe back in the day. You didn't have those, and he taught me so much about psychology and babyface comeback, and all during that seminar and you could just barely see it. Somebody videotaped it and copied it 100 times, I think. I had 100th generation, I think. But he taught me so much, and if you go back and watch that match, you could see everything he talked about. But also one of those matches, and I'm going to ask you this while I'm talking about it, is that they went through that match many times on plane rides, hotel rooms. Savage was just, this has got to be perfect. In a lot of
Meticulous.
old, yeah. Did you do that a lot when you first started? Let's go over everything, and then, but kind of left that idea that you had to go over everything before you go out, or do you still do that?
So when I was brand new, we would call everything because Austin was trying to make it look like I had been wrestling for years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I called everything, needed everything called. I'll also point out that they actually broke up our first match together. They threw us in the opener, and we were getting such a good pop that they came
I
in and
thought you was
killed our
going to say
match.
the opposite. We suck so bad.
No, no, we were getting such good reaction because I was right out of high school. So our first match was in Batesville, Arkansas for NCCW, and our match got so over because a lot of the guys that are a lot of people that I had graduated with or that were still in high school in Tuckerman drove all the way to Batesville to watch me wrestle. So they were losing their mind for this match.
See, I saw you. I remember I think the first matches I saw you in were Batesville. I wanted to do something with Brandon Baxter, and I said,
Mhm.
Brandon, if you ever are in the area and you want to do something wrestle wise, you got to roll for me. Holler at me. I just want to do something with you. And I was the special MC for the contest of Booger and Nikki Lane, and I had to. Everyone was booing Booger, but was supposed to be cheering Booger.
Mhm.
And I had to point at this girl. I was like, "Oh my God, Booger's supposed to win this!" And so I seen this girl cheering Booger, and I said, how about we just decide this woman? And she jumped up and down. And Brandon was like, my God, you saved that. And I said, they don't like Booger. How do you have a baby face out there that no one likes? But I think one of the first times I saw you was at Batesville,
Mhm.
and it was you were over like crazy on that show, but I know why now, because you had all your family. No, I mean, honestly, when you have your family there, they go like crazy. And then Anton LaVey was there. It was the first time I saw him work live, and I tore him apart because said he was a spot monkey.
Mhm.
And you worked LaVey, you and two, I can't remember the tag team match that night, but you had worked him. But Batesville was, man, it was hot at one time.
It really was. So going back to calling my matches, I got where after years of doing it, I, especially at this point in my career, I've been doing it for, see, I started when I was 18, I'm 40, so 22 years. I got where I wanted to feel the crowd out. So I'll go out and I'll have a basic outline in my head of like, okay, we'll do this, this, and this. But if they're not responding to it, I want to be able to change. Because if my thing is, and I tell this a lot to the trainees in Memphis, if everybody is Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't special.
Right.
You have to have guys, you have to have a Santino Marella. You know, you got to have guys that.
No, I don't. Okay, so
I'm just, you know, you
I'm
have,
sorry. Go ahead. I'm just not a fan.
guys.
There's very few guys that I shit on all the time, but he's one of them. So there you go.
Insert
I
comedy
understand.
Wrestler,
I
insert
agree.
comedy wrestler here.
I agree with you.
So
I
you
agree.
gotta, and I don't want to be just a comedy wrestler. That's not what I'm trying to do. But if you have, okay, let's say Memphis Taping, you have the posse going out, and they're going to murderize somebody. If you watched a couple weekends ago when they jumped all over Tommy Dreamer.
Right.
So if they're going to go out and they're going to wrap a chain around Tommy Dreamer's face to get heat on Tommy, well, if me and Gaston go out and we're going to be fighting John Dalton, if we wrap a chain around his face, it weakens their angle and our angle. So you got to do something. You got to be able to switch on the fly.
But see, that's your experience. A lot of people don't understand the experience part of it, of changing right in the middle of it. I always liked, before I went out with my two teams, we talked about the start because we were heels. I want to know when we start the babyface, when we start the heat. Let the babyface, how long you want the shine to last was kind of the question. And when was the hot tag coming? What was the finish? So am I going to use my clipboard? Am I going to backfire on something? Tell me that. And then I would let them work the whole and then come back and say, okay, you know, don't die as a baby face. Try to make your comebacks if I was helping somebody. But that was the only thing. And I just I mean, after people get trained, they start, you know, they'll come to the side and say exactly what you said. Man, they're not into this, BT. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd say something like, tell them to go home. And so we would go home, but that's the change of, and people don't understand. I notice I'm not, let me just say, I'm old school, but I'm also a fan of the new, and I call it a hybrid wrestling, the AEW Spot Fest. I am a fan of that, but and this goes back to what you said. You can't have that on every match, and that's what happens sometimes. You're just like this on AEW pay-per-view. You're like, what? Man, I've split it up. I actually watch half of it one night when it's on and half of it the next morning so that I won't be so tired from watching it. But it's, and we'll talk about you at the school and everything, but being able to call a match or change a match. And did you watch it? We did me and Austin did your match, your bull rope match. And he talked all about that and how y'all completely change everything and have to, but it's being,
luckily, you know, it broke, the way the bull rope broke was fortunate, because if it would have happened the other way around, well, he'll just run away, right? So I mean,
I was just like, oh shit. That's what my first thing was. I was like, and I was glad it was not, you know, a guy that had only been in the business for about a year, because they would have probably shit on that one. So it's like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And that's one of my things about wrestling, that when me and Austin do those matches, but it is when I talk to any of you guys after the matches, I'll say something like, I like the match. You know, I love the way you did the finish. And almost every time people say, well, BT, that's not exactly what we were going to do. We were going to do this. And I'm like, oh, crap, you know.
My only complaint about that match is where he had me. You know, he had the rope in my mouth and was going to, you know, have me in the SDF, and he's pulling that rope in my mouth. The camera angle on it was the middle rope was covering my face. So you couldn't see, the camera angle didn't get the fact that he had the rope in my mouth. And that's my only complaint about that match. And it was one of those things where we couldn't see where the camera was going to be. You know, we didn't know that it was going to just line up perfectly like that. But if you could have seen, like, I had rope burn on my lips from how hard we were working that.
Yeah.
But we didn't get the payoff because you couldn't see it on the camera. And that's all. I mean, it's on us because, you know, we should have maybe went to the camera guy and okay,
said, hey, we're doing
exactly
this
where
spot.
do we need to be in the ring? Yeah.
You
know, so
learn from TV. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about Memphis wrestling. And I want you to kind of bring me up to, I know where you started at and you've been around. We'll talk about some more of the places you worked in this area and talk about some people from this area. So we'll be back with Matt Williams here in just after the commercials. All right. Thank you to our sponsors, especially spunkalube.com. Thank you. So we are, we're going to talk about you. You got trained. You started working. Were you always like, and we always give Austin Lane hell, and you do too. And I know he's one of your best friends kind of thing. But were you always with him and traveling with him when you first, and did you ever take because when I saw you on TV, and I know this is one of the first things I thought, there's Excalibur, him and Austin are friends, and they're from this area. That's the first thing I thought of. So did you always travel with him?
So our traveling crew was me, Austin Lane, and Deadly Dale. We were traveling together. We were doing a lot of the Aaron Polston shows.
Right. Yeah, I remember Aaron. Yeah.
So me and Dale were working as a tag team, and Austin was doing singles, and me and Dale were baby faces, and Austin was a heel. So there was a few shows, like if they didn't have someone to go work Austin, they would throw me in there as a babyface to work Austin, just because I'm a guy that got trained by him. I can have the perfect Austin Lane match. So
right,
you know,
makes it a lot easier.
Oh yeah. So me and Austin, we've always just had great chemistry from coming up, you know, at the same time and him training me.
Yeah, I did. That's what I talk about. I talk about NXT sometimes because you'll have a person that's just having, the girls are the worst about this, but they'll have some of the best matches at NXT, and then they go to the main roster and they don't look as smooth. And somebody said, well, why don't they look as good on the main roster? I said, because they're working people they train with 24/7. It makes a lot of, and hell, that's what we used to do. I had two teams, a babyface team and a heel team, but they all trained together, and we had the matches all over the place. So we had the same matches. Sometimes we'd have a match on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday, and it'd be all the same match, but we could do that because we were working people. Talk about, you said that was your traveling buddies. Talk about, I pulled some stuff off of WrestlingRideOnline.com. Morgan Lane is your shoot brother, and you guys, y'all tagged as the American Degenerates. I love that name. How'd y'all come up with that? Were y'all heels at the time?
No, we were actually babyface.
Wow.
Weird. Yeah. So I was kind of doing a grappler, and I had a lot of red, white, and blue singlets and stuff. I had red, white, and blue boxing robes, and so I was doing almost like a Kurt Angle kind of thing, just because I liked grappling. Also, this is around the time when I was a young man. I would do a lot of high stuff off the top rope. I never was doing swantons, but I would do a leg drop off the second, and I would do an elbow drop, a Shawn Michaels style elbow drop off the top. And the older I got, the harder that was. My hip was starting to hurt.
Right.
I had 2 knee injuries that almost made me think that I needed to quit wrestling. So I had to adjust. It was one of the things, like I said earlier, you have to adapt. So I had to start adapting to my limitations. I couldn't do the stuff that I used to do, the young, fiery baby face that was doing all the high flying stuff. So I had to learn how to wrestle. So I started doing that, and I was like, you know, Kurt Angle was big, and so I was like, all right, I'll do some red, white, and blue stuff. Well, then they wanted to put me and Morgan together as a tag. And Morgan was more of okay, so I am Bret Hart, and I'm not saying I'm as good as Bret Hart. I'm not as good as Bret Hart.
What you're saying. I know what you're fixing to say. I know what.
But Morgan was Shawn Michaels. He was a showman, and he was really good on the mic. You know, I get credit for being good on the mic. Morgan is really good on the mic. But but he was more of a Degeneration X kind of thing. So we just kind of merged our two gimmicks together.
Oh, I see it
And
now.
it was
I
the
see
and it
what
was the
you did.
American Degenerates.
Awesome. I've got these matches that I reviewed with you in. Here's the guy's name, and you can talk about him a little bit. He got so mad at me when I returned to SWF from a report I did on him that I thought we were going to fight, and I didn't want to fight him because he would have probably whipped my ass. Johnny Hawk, he's passed away, right? He's not with us anymore.
Passed away.
Yeah, you wrestled him in a match that I said good, fast-paced match, some sloppy spots, but it was really good. Music started to distract X, so Hawk finished him off. Talk about Johnny a little bit.
Johnny Hawk, he was one of those very, very old school guys. Didn't really want to work with you until you earned his respect. There was
He didn't want me in the dressing room either. He didn't.
He didn't want you in the dressing room. I remember that night. I remember there being a lot of. I was like, can't tell if this is a shoot or a work, brother.
Oh man, I mean, no, it was total shoot. I only had that. I only had that happen a couple times, and one time in Mississippi with somebody that did. It's so weird. Both of those guys have passed away. Look, oh, that's weird. But he didn't bother me because I know if he would have went forward, I could have took him. Johnny, he just looked tough. And I was just like, man, I hope he don't come over here.
Tough. Johnny had hands like ham hocks, like like he would hit you, and you're like, okay, man, do I owe you money? What is going on?
But I was always like, if you don't want me, all you got to say is, BT, we don't, we only let workers backstage. But Johnny was, man, you got to get out of here. And I'm like, dude, he apologized to me.
Yeah, he was very, very old school. Very old school. Me and him, the matches by then, and I'm not trying to speak ill on him. He was a little past his prime at that time. If you would have seen his stuff where him and his brother Tony the Bull were when they were tagging as the Mexican Express, really great tag team in this area. It was, they had just got to a certain point where past their prime, they would get in Johnny liked working me. Demon X liked working me. But it was, I could work guys like that.
Exactly what I said on the website. Yeah. You could have an almost 3-star match with and that's a talent, man. It's a talent to make everybody. You don't just make yourself look good. You got to let somebody else. And Austin knows this. Austin used to be a little bit stingy. Let me say that. Well, he was a little stingy, but then as he got older, he okay, we got to let this guy shine too, kind of thing. And Johnny was. I had to share that because you were there the night we got into the fight.
Yeah, I was there. I remember.
I was just like, dude, I was in total shock. I mean, most everybody, if I told them they had a dud or had a shitty match, they're just like, you're right. Yeah, I had a shitty match. They're not mad at me, but man, he was mad. Him, and I tell you somebody else that Rodney Mack got mad at me. And you talk about being scared, man.
Rodney's a big old dude.
He brought me to the side, and there wasn't nobody. So he didn't do it in front of people. And he was like, how did I not win Wrestler of the Year? I was like, Rodney, let me tell you, just up front, there was a total shoot. And by the way, my awards were a total shoot. And they voted. And I think Dustin won that year. And he says, okay, we're good. And that was it. But man, I was like, and then after that, I was at a show, and I come up behind him, and I ended up putting him in a wrist lock in front of all the boys and taking him almost all the way to the ground. He sold it. He said wrist lock, and I just went wrist. And the guys in the room were just like, what the fuck just happened? BT's whipping Rodney Mack's ass. So, yeah, great guy. I never become friends with the guy in Mississippi, but Johnny did talk to me a lot afterwards and apologize. So that was cool. Speaking of awards, I was told at one time that these awards were shoot. I was in an awards show at ASWF. But a few of them seem a little worked. Excalibur was hilarious in his acceptance speech, crying and saying, I'm happy to win an award that Austin Lane did not win. That was and that was in 2008. A fun night. That was a really fun night. Let me ask you one more old school thing, and then we'll go to what's going on now with you. But
Okay.
I got a result that says Scott Fury, and we both been friends with Scott forever. Yes,
God, I love Scott.
Man, I want to. There's another Patreon story. I can't remember what the first one was. Here we go. Scott Fury beat Excalibur. Cody Murdoch and Wild Bill helped him win. Lights went out, on and off. Eerie music started playing, and dogs were barking. So tell me what the hell that was about. Do you remember?
I don't even remember. But I will tell you one of my favorite Scott Fury stories.
All right, here we go. Go ahead.
So Scott had done a jump. I don't remember who he had jumped, but he had done a jump, and I was one of the baby faces that were breaking it up. And I got in there, and Scott had powdered, and he was on the aisle, and I said, "All right, Scott, you made your point." And he went, "No, now I'm making a point." And he just pointed his finger at me. Now I'm making my point. And I broke in the ring. I started laughing.
Man, that's the fun.
He's one of those guys that
dogs are barking, so I don't know.
I don't even remember that one, but if he would have, Scott's one of those guys who could have went to the next level if he would have had things not go against him.
Man, y'all guys, the whole crew, and I talked about Otto Bane with Ray and Scotty, Vic Vicious, that crew, and then that was kind of y'all's crew too. But honestly, y'all, there was about 4 or 5 of y'all, and shout out to your brother Morgan Lane. We'll have to bring him on here sometimes. Really good, just solid worker that wanted to have a good match and wanted everybody to look good. So that you had a good list of people. We don't know why the dogs are barking after all these years.
After 22 years, there's going to be certain stories, and that's probably one of those things where we're going to do this, and I was like, whatever,
just do it.
It's not worth fighting.
Did you book? Were you booking ASWF during that time? Because you did book it for a while, didn't you?
I did book for a while. There was times where Austin would have the book, and him and ownership would clash, and I would step in and assist book, just because some guys will book and they don't like having anyone tell them how to do it.
Right.
Well, I'm booking, we're doing it my way. But here's the thing. You have a promoter that is pouring money into it. And if they have a vision, you have to be able to do that vision. Even if you don't agree with that vision, they're the one with the checkbook.
I wish I'd heard this advice the first time I booked a show. I booked a show like 6 months in Malden, Missouri, and it was all about me. We're going to do what I say instead of listening to the way the owner of the company wanted me to do it. So.
Yeah. And you can't do that. So there would be times, and people would get their feelings hurt and they would walk away. And so I don't like to put myself over, but I have good ideas. I think about wrestling a lot, and you probably don't know this about me, but I write short stories. So
I didn't. He writes short stories.
Yeah, I like new. It's one of my creative outlets. I like to write short stories. So writing wrestling angles, comes kind of second nature, especially if you know the guys and know what they're good at. So I would never say that I was like a full-time booker. I was usually there to make sure things didn't get effed up until either they talked Austin into coming back,
and you have to be. There has to be. I always believe this. And there's a story about Kevin Sullivan when he was booking in WCW, where he would come up with 100 ideas, but there had to be that one guy that would say, "Okay, we're going to use these 2 ideas because everything else sucks."
Yeah, because if you don't, you end up with the Yeti.
Yeah. There you go. You have to have that guy that says, "Okay." And this is one of my favorite lines backstage. I really like that. That's a great idea. But what do you think about this? I like your start. And then I would go right into how you like that. And then I'm not saying most of the time, not 100%, but most of the time my idea for the finish and everything was a little bit better than somebody else. But sometimes, it's the opposite. And they said, no, I want to do it this way. I remember you were talking about someone cracking you up. Miles Long, Trey Keller was in the ring one night, and he was trying to sell some boots. And during the whole night in the dressing room, he was like, anybody want to buy these boots? Anybody want to buy these boots? And before we went out, I said, man, Miles, shut the fuck up about them boots. I'm tired of hearing about them boots, but I was just kidding. So we get in the ring, and my guy goes face to face with Miles, and Miles takes his finger, and the crowd can't hear him. Miles takes his finger and starts pointing Paul's chest. Paul Justice, he says, I've got a pair of boots. I can sell you. And he looks over at me, and he points at me, and you shut up. I'm trying to sell those boots. But yeah, that's the fun stuff that you always have. All right, we're here for all episodes of Memphis in May. So we're going to actually talk about Memphis wrestling. Tell me how you actually Austin helped you get in, or you and Austin were together on this when you first came in.
I made a joke on Twitter.
Oh, really? Tell me about it. Tell me about this.
Austin Lane was in a program with Kay Toomer. I had worked a few places with Kay Toomer, and I had been telling everybody forever that I thought Kay Toomer was the next guy.
Yeah.
That he could go to WWE, Impact, New Japan, AEW. Kay Toomer is the guy. I'm convinced by that.
I agree.
And I like to say that I'm one of the first people who noticed that. So Austin was in a program with KT, and they had a spot, and Toomer had hurt Austin, and I put on Twitter, because I had retired. I was done. I wasn't going to wrestle anymore. I had a bad experience at the place I was wrestling before, and I was like, man, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Politics just pisses me off. I mean, I'm coming home. I'm not happy after shows. I'm done. But I put on Twitter, I was like, hey, Austin, you need some help with that big guy, brother? That was the tweet. And Austin said, hey, I'm about to have hernia surgery. They're writing me off of TV. I talked to Dustin. We could use you as a filler until I come back. And I was like, okay. So I talked to my wife about it. And she said, as long as you think you're going to be happy, I don't want you to be unhappy.
Right.
If it's going to be work, I don't want you to do it. And I was like, well, I mean, I grew up watching Memphis wrestling. I've always wanted to be a part of it.
That was my question. Was it just as, did you mark out as much as I did? Because Dustin put me on TV. He had a clip of the podcast on television. Yeah. I marked out. I was like, oh my God. I'm on Memphis wrestling finally. So
Austin's like, yeah, come on up. We'll get you plugged in. So I went up. I had worked a few shows with Dustin. I don't know if he even remembers me. I'm not that guy that goes up and talks to everybody. I kind of sit with the people that I'm comfortable with, which is probably one reason that
I remember talking to Dustin about you, and he says, because I was telling him, I said, Matt is a journeyman. He's been doing this for a long time. I called you Excalibur, but he's been doing this for a long time. He goes, he was one of those Arkansas guys, and that that was your tag. You were one of those Arkansas guys.
Yeah.
So we knew who you were, but we didn't. We knew who you were, but we didn't know who you were. I didn't know you. I didn't know you until you came. Yeah.
So also was getting rid of. So he was having hernia surgery, but they were writing him off for a shoulder injury. So I was in the crowd, and Toomer bumps Nikki, he bumps Austin, splashes Austin. I grab a chair from the crowd, and I come in, and I pop KT with that chair, and he no-sells it.
Right.
And then he gives me his finish, and I'm down. And I still watch that clip. It's first time on Memphis TV, and I'm like, holy shit, I was such a fat ass. Because I had retired. I wasn't working out. I was 225, and I looked awful.
Hey, when you look at yourself, it's like me, back on my program too, because you start looking at yourself and saying, man, that's a big ass head on that. And it's your head. It's not everybody else's head. It's your head. So I want to tell you about working television. Everybody tells me, and I've worked television twice, but it's a total different animal.
Oh, yeah, completely different.
So did that, because I noticed some things when you first started working on television. You was a little apprehensive about things. Like you said, hadn't been in the ring in a while. But it's got so, but I mean, you're so relaxed now with everything you do.
Well,
am I
I'll
in the
tell you
right
how I got
spot?
relaxed. No, I'll tell you how I got relaxed. So I was never, so I do one match with KT. I think I was actually, besides his first match, I was the first person to pin KT. I didn't win, but I was the first person that got him down long enough to get a 1 count on him. And I was in, let's see, was involved with, I was protecting Nikki's back when she lost the women's title, because KT came out and was
right.
because he had bumped her, and I was like, I'm gonna watch her back, and KT came out, did a spinning heel kick for a 387-pound dude to be able to spin and kick me in the face. It's pretty athletic, like I said.
Yeah.
Big thing. But then Austin came back, and I was just his corner guy. They didn't really have anything for me on TV at the time. Mike Anthony, I'm sorry, I'm not answering your call right now because I'm doing a podcast. If you watch this podcast, I'm shady butting you, but it's just because I am doing a podcast.
There you go, Mike. Leave us the hell alone, Mike. Come on.
So I'm babyface, but I'm more of like babyface manager corner guy. How many babyface managers do you know?
It's hard to do.
They don't.
I've done it
much.
before.
Yeah, like they do it, but the great managers are your Bobby Heenans, your Jim Cornettes, your Paul Heymans.
When do you bump as a babyface manager? See, that's the thing.
So
the heel manager's got a bump, but you don't want the babyface manager to be bumping all over the place. So it's weird. It's weird.
So uncomfortable in my own skin, and I was about to be like, Dustin, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Right.
I've really had fun. I got to live a dream. I got to wrestle for Memphis TV, and I was planning on having that talk with him that day. And then he comes up to me, production meeting, and he goes, "Hey, what do you think about turning heel?" And I said, "Well, Dustin, if you turn me heel, you're going to give me a lot more TV time."
Right.
And he goes, "I like your confidence." I said, "This is my thing." I was like, "You turn me heel, you're going to give me more TV time." And he said, "Okay, let's see what you got." So he had me turn heel on Austin. I was with Norman Meklikoff for a little bit. I had a really bad spurt of luck with partners.
You did. You really did. I just figured it was you. I figured. I said
Norman got hurt.
X is a prick, so nobody wants to.
Nobody wants to work with him. Norman had a back injury. Then they put me with Jack, which I love Jack. His dad got sick, and there was some stuff, I think behind the scenes that I'm not keen to.
Yeah, me too.
So Jack left, and it was like But have you ever heard the saying, "Make chicken salad out of chicken shit"?
Oh yeah, very much so.
And it wasn't like Dustin was booking me in chicken, shit angles. It was just nothing. Every time something would start to catch traction, something would happen, and things would have to change. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing the best that I can do. So if he put me on commentary, I'm going to knock it out of the park.
I have booked you when you finally decide to retire. I have no pull whatsoever. Let me just tell you that. And everybody thinks me and Dustin's friends and I can tell him what to do. No, he don't book some of that stuff. So I have no pull whatsoever. But my commentary dream team for Memphis Wrestling is Terrence, you in the middle, and Dustin on the other side.
I would love that. When I'm done wrestling, I would love to do that.
Yeah, you have the voice. You have every time you've been on there, you've been really good. So every chance I get, I'm going put X back on commentary.
Thank you. Put me over, DVT. I'll put you over. You put me over.
But that is really, it's one of those things where, and I've said this many times, and me and Kay Toomer talked about it when I had him on. Wrestling, if you are and want to be involved in wrestling, if you want to be involved, there's something for you to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be athletic. You can put the chairs out. You can pop the popcorn. You can do podcasts
Yeah.
because as Jerry Lawler told me one time, the only thing athletic about me is my feet. So, it's true. I mean, there's something to do if you are a fan and want to be part of the business.
Yeah.
We'll let you referee. We'll let you
There's something you can do.
go pick up somebody. That we were talking about that the other day. Me and Dustin was. He has somebody that picks up people and takes them and everything. But so you're on Memphis Wrestling. You as everyone we've talked to, that guys like Austin, Brett Michaels, Mike Anthony, you. Let me think. Who else? I don't want to leave him back. K Tumber's one of them, but he's a little younger than you guys. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Posse had a little bit of TV time, but they didn't do anything with them. But you guys were stuck in that middle where there was Memphis Wrestling, and then it died. And then the other incarnations, or whatever you want to call it, you had that came along a lot. Y'all got a bad reputation. Y'all were the backyarders because, and then they wouldn't use you guys at all.
No, and really, it was political.
Yeah.
They didn't use guys like us because they had some guys that were really decent body guys or something like that, but couldn't work their way out of a wet paper bag. And
it's true. That's what they did. And the thing about it is, we thought
so we were blacklisted.
Yeah. Y'all were considered backyard. We're not using backyard people. Blah blah blah. But the weird thing is that a lot of the guys from those shows would work these shows, would work Tuckerman in Dresden, Tennessee, and Jackson, Tennessee. They would work the shows with the backyarders,
and they would want to work with the backyarders because they know we could make them look good.
Right. And then they came a stage, and I don't know if you were involved in this, but a lot of the guys in this area got on I call it Corey Macklin's version of Memphis Wrestling. You got on there. Dustin had a little bit of push as a Southern Tag Team champ, but a lot of guys just went to TV. And Corey didn't even know who the hell they were. I mean, he would mess up their names, and he would take a team like Picture Perfect. I know you know those guys. Yep. And he would job them out. They're so good, but the reason why is exactly what you said. The stars love working them. So they would just job them out, and so nothing happened. And then Dustin comes along, and I'm just like you. I'm just like Austin, Brett. Nobody would touch me because I was the kayfabe sheet guy. When I first started going backstage, taking pictures for Memphis Wrestling, putting them in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, by the way. Shout out to Bill Actors. We talked about him earlier. That I also brought the kayfabe sheet with me, the Observer. I had it in my hand, and I would let the wrestlers read it while I was there, but I was the kayfabe sheet guy, so there's no way in hell they're going to give me a break for anything. And Dustin, I was doing a podcast, and our conversation was, I said, man, I'm going to do a podcast on this. I already came up with the name, the Rolling Into Memphis. I'm going to do this podcast for like 12 weeks. We did that when AEW started. We did Dynamite for 12 weeks, and then we do pay-per-views. I said, if you do, we'll come back, blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, man, I'm not going to do a podcast about our show. Why don't you just, and then Rhino came on, and we did this. It was all
like Rhino JB. I thought y'all were a great tag team.
Thank you. Rhino was he had the total different perspective of the business that I just loved, and me and Austin talked about that. It was Austin's like, man, I don't want to offend you, but I like to hear what Rhino says because he's a mark. And I said, well, he had a mark view. Yeah, he had a mark.
I feel like you have my view.
Right.
Like but you and me have very similar views, a little older, a little old school. So a lot of times your perspective is what I'm already thinking. So I liked Rhino's perspective, and the same thing. I'm not going to call Rhino a mark.
Well, I'm not.
But
not in a bad way. I'm not.
Had more of a new fan kind of perspective.
I
was like I said earlier, if everybody's Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't matter. So hearing his like twist on things, I was like, Okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh, buddy, it's
And it made me
been
think outside of the out of my comfort zone
yeah,
too.
it's been a weird adjustment. Let me just say that for the last 17 or 18 episodes without him, because I don't do a podcast alone.
Yeah.
Never. I had done 2 or 3 episodes up till the episode 100. I mean, of the whole, so 600 and something episodes, I had done like 3 alone, so I was not used to that. And it's been a total let's learn how to do this. And the first episode that I recorded was 7 minutes long with me. So I was like, oh hell, I got to do this again. I got something else to talk about. So you went, you're grabbing the bull by its horns kind of thing, and just doing everything that Dustin wants you to do. We settled this up with Austin. That feud is over, and I actually love the way they book things. They actually give us a finish, and blah blah blah. And then
how do you feel about hair versus hair matches when the hair doesn't get cut?
Oh,
how do you feel about that, BT?
Let's don't talk about that. Patreon.
Well, now
did you hear the tone in my voice? I was trying to be something that people don't understand.
The main event Bradley payoff.
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
So I get asked all the time, X, is that why don't you do this? Why don't you? They don't understand. I do a podcast where I provide content to Memphis Wrestling. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean I work for Memphis Wrestling. I get to claim those live views, the views on YouTube. So I provide content. So tell me, if I spent 20 minutes bitching about on his show, on Rolling Into Mempho, that I provide for Dustin, about them not cutting the hair, I said what I wanted to say, and I just went with
it. And you got past it.
But I did say it a couple of times. I was like,
oh, I know. I watched the show. I watched the show.
You heard my sly comments, huh?
I heard them.
It's happened before. People don't remember this, but I was actually listening to something that I had done, but we're talking about the Lawler hair match. He got a haircut that night, but a lot of people don't realize that it was just a haircut. He did not shave his head bald.
No.
And then he was gone. So when he came back, he had hair. It was not a complete shaving.
Didn't get the payoff.
But it was a payoff. Why? Wonder why everyone considered that shaving head, because they did back then. And if you talk to anyone that watched that, they'll tell you, yep, Lawler lost his hair that night. He lost his hair. And you're like, no, he really didn't. All right. So tell me. So I asked, and no one really told me the real story about this, but Gaston, kind of I don't know. I want to say secondary character that was losing a lot, but had a really fun gimmick. And you and him actually get paired up. And I was just like, who came up with this? And I think people thought that I was saying, who came up with this shit, as in a bad way. He's pointing at himself if you're not watching the video. But I loved it. I love it. I love the chemistry. You and this, I don't know if you and this guy's are friends or what, but you and
friendly. We're a lot closer now.
And then you bring Ellsworth in. So tell me how all that happened.
Okay, so the Grind City Rumble. Gaston eliminates Nix. I eliminate Mackenzie Morgan. And,
I love that, by the way. I just love that.
No big plans as far as I knew, but I knew they were bringing in Ellsworth. I've gotten a lot.
And his gimmick is he wrestled women. If you didn't watch him in the WWE,
he wrestled women. And so I have gotten closer with Dustin. And after the Grind City Rumble, Dustin said, shoot me 4 ideas. Shoot me 4 ideas that you think would be good for you. And he said, just because he said, I don't want you to get lost in the shuffle. And I said, okay. And I pitched me and James Ellsworth and Gaston against Cassandra, Mackenzie, and Nix. And I said, we can do that and get us to the next spot. And he goes, okay, I like that. He goes, I like that. He goes, I was going to have Ellsworth do something with the girls. So, yeah. And he may have had, I'm not saying that was completely my idea. He may have had that in the back of his mind because he is the one who said, you throw out Nix, you throw out Mackenzie. So he may have had an idea and maybe was just seeing if we were willing to work with the girls or if we were going to be, I'm a manly man, I'm not going to work with the women, So he might have been feeling us out just to make sure we weren't going to take an angle and make it shitty.
It goes back to what I said. You can do a lot of things in this business. If you want to be part of the business, you can give a shit angle, or not that it was a shit angle, but for instance, you can get in there and you can do it and show them that you're loyal to the product and be able to get other people over except yourself. I'm saying this for people that don't like to do that. So there you go.
So I have something that people, I don't talk about my personal life very much. If you have me on Facebook, you'll know. But because I don't have a gimmick Facebook and a normal Facebook.
Oh my God! I gotta tell this story.
I'm Matt Williams, so
I gotta tell you something before we go any further.
Okay.
So Otto Bain, Uncle Phil, I was talking to him and Brad about all episodes, Memphis in May, and he says, "I'll come on." He says, "You should have Matt come on." I said, man, that's a great idea because I've never really, me and Matt's been in dressing rooms, but we never sat down and talked to each other. This is going to be fun. And so I start hunting for you. And then I message him and I go, what's Matt's shoot name? And he talks back, Matthew Williams. And I was like, oh, what a goof. That's what I thought about myself at the time. All right, I'm sorry. A goober, not a goof. Goof is bad. But what a goober. And then I messaged you and you was Matthew Williams. It is a shoot account. And me and you weren't even friends at the time. So I was just like, man, I need to get you. But yeah, go ahead. I'll shut up.
So I have 3 daughters. I have taken my older 2 daughters to 3 WrestleManias.
Oh, wow.
My oldest daughter which she's in that picture right there. That's my oldest daughter in the background. She's in college and is a little too cool for wrestling anymore.
Oh, yeah.
She still comes to ASWF shows because her boyfriend likes to watch wrestling. So she still has to come to some shows to watch me. But the whole point of this is I have 3 daughters, so the women's division is particularly important to me because I'll watch AEW or I'll watch WWE, and my middle daughter, who loves wrestling, will be like, man, I don't understand why, Roman Reigns gets 10 minutes for an entrance and the girls' match was, bell to, from entrance to bell was 7.
Was 7, yeah.
And so I started asking Dustin if I could help produce the girls.
There you go. There's a job. There you go.
I know how busy he is. And he's got different guys that help with different things, and I'm sure that he talks about it, but I'm not going to say anything about anybody without knowing that it's okay to say. But I asked if I could help produce the girls. And he said, okay, well, what do you have in mind? So this whole story that has transpired with Nix turning heel and winning the title was my idea.
I love the storyline, and I'm going to tell. I'm pull the curtain back a little bit, but we do this all the time. But we are recording this in advance. So the last thing I saw was Gaston with the suitcase. He opened it with the bright light in it. So we don't have any stuff after that. But I love the idea of where you went with it, and the idea that we could bring. Right now with Ellsworth twice, in reality, you could not bring Ellsworth ever back again and still call yourself Ellsworth until you decided you're never going to use him again. So let's change the name. Well, you can get away from him, kind of thing. But I love the group. I love the interaction with you 2 guys. And Ellsworth seems to be Ellsworth had a bad name in the business there after he got out of WWE, and there was nothing ever proven. And he never was charged with anything. So some of these places started using him again. And it was just silly. It was internet silliness. And he seems to be just totally into anything y'all want to do.
He's good with whatever, in the first match, he takes the pin.
Right. Yeah.
In the first 6-man, he took the pin, they had asked if I was willing to take the pin, just in case, because he was a name. If he wasn't if he won't take the pin, would you? I don't give a crap. Yes, of course I will. I'm here to do business.
Yeah, have you noticed that though? Here's what I noticed, and I just started thinking about it because someone mentioned to me, it's great what Dreamer did. He put over the posse with the chain and everything, and the stuff with Jerry Lynn. The stars that come in at the very front of this, we're into 2 years, and at the very front of this, we didn't see a lot of them losing.
No, and that's proof that Memphis is putting up traction. We're gaining traction because these stars are coming in and they don't mind to put our guys over.
They don't care. Rhino
lost to KT with a year.
Yeah.
KT beat Cruel.
Yep.
Brad had a great match with Dreamer. He didn't go over, but Dreamer made Brad look good.
Didn't Brad put out Moose also?
Yeah. Brad eliminated Moose from the.
So he did a lot. It's kind of a different.
Yes,
I'm seeing a change in people saying Memphis is back.
You can cut this if Dustin doesn't like it. But they were actually going to have KT eliminate Moose, and Moose said, he pointed at Brad and goes, "Hey, isn't he the shitty heel?"
Right. I heard that. Yeah, I've already been told that.
Like, yeah. And so he goes, "Have him do it." He goes, "I don't want them to boo KT, your big star, for eliminating me. Let's get heat on the heel." And so it was Moose's idea to put Brad over. That's awesome.
Yeah. Brad has really got to me. He's got so much better on Otto Bain was talking about. He thought that Brad's brother Briar was the workhorse of the. You actually wore the Lethal Injection shirt. I had to say something about that. I was like, who is that?
Lethal Injection. Oh man!
But
I was big. I was one of the guys that was big on Brad and Briar when they came into ASWF.
I seen them. Like I said, I told the story. I seen them in Jonesboro on the street. They have that Main Street thing once a year, and they were wrestling. You might have been at that show, but they were wrestling. They were all over the place. But I was like, man, you could really tighten some stuff up with these guys, and they'd be real good. But man, Brad is one of those guys that's just. Talking about taking the bulls by the horns. This guy said, "You want to do this? Hell yeah! You want to shave your head? Hell yeah! Let's get over. Let's do it."
Yeah, Brad's great.
So, do you have? Don't tell me any spoilers because I don't do spoilers. But do you have plans, long-term plans, to keep you and Gaston together, or will this all? Okay, good,
yes.
good. I love it.
I am, currently. Let's see. The past episode, I think, was Dalton and Mackenzie and Cassandra talking backstage.
Yes, they're talking backstage.
Yeah, and, so setting up tag match and then setting up a singles match. So there's more legs on this story.
Awesome.
I usually don't try to pitch stuff for myself. I'm especially since Dustin has been gracious enough to let me help with the women's division the way he has. So I don't know exactly where we're going. Mr. Chris talked to me a little bit about some stuff that might happen down the road, but I think me and Gaston, it's enough that I have bought matching gear.
There you go.
Not wearing. I'm not wearing
matching gear. Yeah.
I'm not wearing trunks, but I got my same spike shorts, but I got a gold outline, and that way me and Gaston match better because I feel like the tag team's going to stick.
Yeah, I mean, y'all could go for the tag belts against the babyface team at any time. It's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard for you guys to be babyfaces, though. Let me just say.
Oh no, and that's I'm naturally a heel.
Yeah, me too. I never wanted to be a babyface.
There's some guys that work babyface that are great babyfaces.
I remember going to a show in Dresden. I walked through the dressing room, and the booker pulled me to the side. He goes, "Look, you always bring these two teams in. I want you to manage this other team and turn to." I was a heel. He says, "We're going to turn you baby, and you'll manage the baby faces." And I'm like, "Look at me. why am I with the pretty boys? You know, and they weren't too pretty, but the thing
Prettier
is,
than us, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
prettier than I was, and I wasn't going to do that. I was like, oh, come on, Matt, you're one of the pretty boys too. You wear the pink shirt, you fix your hair up every time. Oh, come on.
Yeah. Look at that gray in the beard. You see the gray?
There you go. But yeah,
I had to start shaving the sides of my head because it was all gray through here. That's why that's the only reason my hair is cut like this now, is because it was all going gray.
I got married to a new wife about 12 years ago, and I swear I kid her about this, but this is true. I never had a gray hair in my beard until I married her, and she is the best wife ever. But man, I'm just like, what the hell happened?
I got 3 daughters.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah,
I got 3 daughters. We know what's going on. All right, we're going to leave it right there. I may have to bring you back and talk about this at the end of the year, where we went with the. I'm enjoying it. It's one of those. It's a comedy. And some guys do not like doing comedy, and some guys are horrible at comedy. So there's a difference between having somebody trying to make you, somebody's, trying to make you laugh, or you're in there. If people don't understand, you're in there to lose, and any time that you lose or Gaston loses against the girls.
I just want to point out that I did win a match. We actually pinned Mackenzie Morgan. So
okay, all right, there you go.
I'm kind of on a win streak right now.
and Ellsworth super kicked right in front of the fucking referee. Right in front of the referee. He was just standing there.
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell? What the hell? All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We got a couple of stories I'm going to tell, and I can't remember what the person was, so hopefully Matt will say what it was. So I got a couple of stories to tell on Patreon. And guys, join us. Thanks for joining us for all episodes, Memphis in May. If the schedule goes as planned, we only have one more episode coming out this coming Wednesday, so we're good to go for the month of May. Thank you, Matt, for joining. It was as fun as I thought it would be. Guys,
thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Same bad time, same bad channel. On the best little wrestling podcast that lasted over an hour in the business. Be there. And as everyone knows, and Matt, you better know this, I love my mama.